moment because I'm going to bring out somebody who has built a massive database in a relatively short amount of time. We were fortunate enough to have the other half, if you will, or she may say, she's the better half, I'm sure, at our event in Traverse City. And I respect this individual that I'm about to bring up because for a while there was really only 2 or 3 other teams in the country with the company that I'm with that was doing more business than we were. In fact, we were doing more business than they were, and they leapfrogged us, and now they're doing substantially more business than we are. Now, of course, we hope to get back to that level and give them a run for their money, just like they gave us a run for our money. But along the process, I want to hear what they did and what they're doing. So if you would join me in welcoming to the stage Miss Karina Loken. Come on out, Karina.
I like that intro music.
You like that song?
I do, actually.
I know, we didn't get into the horsey part, though. That's my favorite when it gets going, You know. Take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till there we go. Anyways.
More.
Okay.
I don't know it that well.
Yeah, I just sing along, pretend I know the words. Let's jump in. So, you are here because you and Lance have a massive business in Houston, Texas. You do how many transactions? How many transactions did you guys do in 2019, by the way?
I believe our final number came in at 2,458.
2,458.
I know, right?
Come on,
crazy.
Let's hear it. And not only does that put you at number 1 or number 2 in KW, but if you look at all real estate companies, I mean, you're probably top 5, top 7 in the entire country. So that's a massive business. When did you and Lance start the business?
So we started the team in January of 2011.
2011.
Yep.
See, a lot of people think when they hear a business that big, oh, they must have been doing it for 30 years. Their parents grew up in the business. 2011.
Long enough to know I should have been doing it sooner.
There you go. So talk to me about what the early days looked like. Tell us a little bit about your story and yourself.
Sure. Well, I got my license the end of 2008 and was an individual agent for about a little over a year, and then was asked to be an interim team leader. And so it pulled me fully out of production to help run our brokerage office. And I didn't feel like I had conquered what I came to conquer, and I was having a lot of fun doing it. And our office needed help, so I was like, okay, sure.
Yep.
I was really thankful for that because it helped me realize how much I loved the production side of it.
Yep.
I learned a lot about business through that, and I think when I came into the business just as an individual agent, I didn't understand, honestly, how much real estate really is a business.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm a slow learner, I guess. It took me a little while to figure that all
Yep.
out. But anyhow, Lance, his company closed, his whole division, over 400 guys lost their jobs at the end of 2010, and he was unfortunately one of the over 400 of them. And we had some decisions to make for our family. And so we decided, let's do this, right? Let's put his business acumen, and I was an elementary school teacher for a decade before I got into real estate. If we put all that together and we don't kill each other, that was a big, giant if.
You haven't yet, anyways.
Well, it's an if every morning when we make up, or when we wake up. It's a conscious decision, and then we make up. There we go.
So, why real estate? What caused you to get into this business?
So when I was actually younger, my dad and my brother both did just like as a hobby almost more than anything, some investing in real estate. And so I was, free labor, I guess, to go and help paint walls and strip wallpaper, which is horrible, especially if the wallpaper's been painted. And so I kind of got the bug, for rehabbing early on. And then I kind of fell into some recruiting for one of the companies actually that Lance worked for, and I loved it. And I pursued a recruiting job actually for a little bit, but Lance was still in corporate and was traveling at least 50% of the time, and we had itty bitties at home, and they wanted me working like 12 hours a day on their terms, on their days, in their hours, and it was like, well, that's not gonna work.
Right.
And I learned really fast that real estate is what I loved about recruiting, which was the lead gen side.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what I love about that story, and we have some parallels, because people look at what we've done in Michigan and say, what are they doing differently? Now, of course, obviously we're very big on developing sales skills, and we have a lot of structure and accountability. But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is I actually took a job after my first year in the business. I sold 30 some homes my first year. I took a job as a manager, as a team leader basically, for Coldwell Banker. And so I was managing a Coldwell Banker office, and I was learning how to recruit, I was learning how to train, I was learning how to manage, I was learning how to develop. And it's amazing how things are full circle, because now all of those skills are part of the reason why we're succeeding at the level that we're succeeding at. And I would imagine that that's the same for you guys. When you look
100%.
up at your business, a lot of what you have done to build that is because of you actually taking that step back and getting into that leadership role. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I recruited one C-level executive for a company that Lance was working for at the time. And you know, I had been a school teacher, right? So they paid me this bonus when I made that one hire that was like literally almost half of my 1 year of school teaching. Now, I wasn't getting paid a lot to teach, but it was like, oh my gosh, people just paid me to make phone calls and like get to know them and ask all their dirty little secrets. Like, how fun is that, right? And so I kind of got that bug of like making calls to people and like asking them all the things that they didn't want to be asked, right? It was just kind of a game to me, honestly. And I loved the recruiting side of it. And full circle, now that's the thing that I have, honestly, I'm so passionate about teaching and recruiting.
Yeah.
And the two go hand in hand, right? Because you're attracting talent, but then you really need to fill in the gaps on the training side so that they can be really successful.
Yep. Awesome. Now, I would say maybe when we asked yesterday what percentage of our audience was at our event in Traverse City, I think maybe 20% of the audience or 15% of the audience was there. So this won't be a repeat for most. What is your role and what is Lance's role?
That varies sometimes day by day.
Yep.
When we're staying in our lanes, how about I start with that? No, that's a real thing. Lance's role, he's the business guy, right? Super savvy with numbers, has
analytical.
Has a finance background, and we count on him for that. Like, I wrote my stats here to make sure if you wanted any hardcore numbers, I got them down to the 10th. Sometimes 100th. But that's his thing, right? And so he does all of our numbers. He keeps track of all the things that we keep track of, which is a ton of, not just like the raw numbers, but all the numbers in between on conversions, so that we can watch how we can improve the business. He's a very futuristic thinker, so he does a lot of strategy for us. And then watches all of our financials.
And then what's your role?
I oversee our training and coaching for our team. I also oversee our hiring. We did leverage that a couple of years ago. All of the filtering and screening and interviewing, the majority of those steps. And then I still meet with those folks kind of at the very end before they join the team. Because I guess what you'd call it is I'm like the culture keeper, right?
Got it. Okay.
Every person that you add, and that was a huge aha for us when we added her name's Laura, when we added her in to kind of offset and be my leverage for hiring and be in that role. Within about a week, she came to me and said, I think I'm scared to do this job. And I was like, why? She said, because I just realized I'm like the gatekeeper for the culture of our business. And she said, that's like such a huge responsibility, and it kind of scares me.
That's
and she was phenomenal. I mean, she was in the role. She ended up to be in that for a little over 2 years for us. Phenomenal. And that was a really big aha for us as a team.
What else did she do besides for the gatekeeper of the culture? I mean, I can't imagine that kept her busy all day.
Well, she did the whole hiring process. So she was sourcing for talent. She was doing all the screening interviews and creating our shorter list, and then doing some more interviews and creating a short list until we got it down to the few, right, that we wanted to get really serious with. And then she did all the coordinating for group interviews and that kind of thing.
Got it. So what I heard in that is you're kind of in charge of the sales side. He's kind of in charge of the operations side to some degree.
To some degree, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you guys have built a pretty massive database since 2011. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What the size of the database is, how you've built it so quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you focus on expands, and we very much focused on it. In fact, I guess 5 years ago now, it was our one thing. And we made that our big goal for the whole year. We actually had a task force. Some of the agents from our organization like raised their hand and volunteered. Lance and I weren't part of the committee. They just like forged ahead on their own and got really intentional. And our data bank grew that year by, I want to say like 50,000.
Wow.
Just by being really, really intentional.
And so you created a committee, and the committee was called, did the committee have a name?
The data bank committee.
The data bank committee.
We're really creative like that.
Well, you did change base to bank, so I like
We
that.
did, yeah,
We were
absolutely.
talking on the phone, if you've ever met Lance. He calls it a data bank. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
it's
data.
data. If
Data
you know.
bank.
Yeah. So 50,000 in 1 year. I mean, obviously you were backstage. I'm not sure whether you're listening or not, but I was talking about the difference between people that we have exchanges with and then just the silent database, meaning the people that were just leads. Maybe they didn't ever respond to us, but we have their name, we have their phone number, we have their email. So
Yep.
what did you consciously do, regardless of what category they fall in, whether they fall in the people that we've had exchanges with, or you may have heard of them as Mets or have not Mets, regardless of that, how did you get it to that level so quickly?
Sure. Number one, we got more intentional about making sure that names and numbers actually got in the data bank, right? Because they're not any good to you, and you can't do anything consistently or use your leverage tools, your tech tools, whatever you have, to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you if they're not in there. So we got really intentional about that.
Yep.
We also started looking at how we could get lists of names and numbers as opposed to just one-offs, right?
Yeah.
And doing it one at a time.
Yep, and so what kind of lists?
We looked at HOA lists. I pulled out my school lists and the other members on the team, you know,
Yeah.
like the PTO list that they give you, right, with names and numbers that
Yeah.
you opt into. I mean, anything like that that we could grab
Love
in
that.
bulk, names
Yep.
and numbers, and people that we had relationships with. So like one of the buyer agents on our team has always been really active with her kids in marching band. And so like the whole marching band went into the data bank.
Yep.
And all of the agents on our team, that I guess probably the year we got a lot more intentional too about the agents on our team adding their sphere in to our
Putting their
data bank
sphere
as
in.
well.
And that's because, you know, I know a lot of agents think, especially if agents are on teams, well, I don't want to give them my client information because, you know, now if I'm never with the team or if I leave, then they'll have all the information. So if I'm an agent on your team, what is the value to me as an agent in giving that information to you?
Sure. Well, number one, there's an integrity issue in this because any agent that's part of TLG, we're always, if they want to import their sphere list into our data bank to be cultivated, we are always going to tag it with their name.
Yep.
Because if they ever, for whatever reason, need to go find a new opportunity,
Yep, it happens.
sometimes we help them, sometimes they decide on their own.
Yep.
Then that, they just got that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's a slow audience. In
It
the
started out
afternoon,
being a joke, but it's a real thing.
they slow down after
It's
the
okay.
afternoon. They're ready
I
for the
know,
next
it's
round.
like
They're ready for the
the
next coffee
afternoon
break.
lunch nap thing.
Coffee's coming in 10, 15 minutes, guys. All right.
Anyhow,
So you tag them as
we
theirs,
tag
which
them
is
as
smart.
theirs,
Yep.
and that way, if they're ever leaving the team for any reason,
Yep.
that list goes with them. And what's been interesting is, for the most part, the folks that have not stayed with our team, they've wanted to leave their lists there. We actually hire almost exclusively from outside of the real estate industry. And so a lot of times, folks that aren't staying with us, it's because they realize like how much they loved what they were doing. One gal wanted to go back and get her degree in nutrition, or things like that.
Yep.
And so they've actually asked for their data bank to stay with us to cultivate it, and we encourage them to keep their license
Yep.
because they
Collect
can stay a
referral fees.
referral agent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. So what I'm hearing in this is you ask for them to provide you with their database when they join because you're going to co-market to that.
Absolutely.
Meaning you're going to do things to generate business for them from that group.
Sure. So then, if I'm if I'm an agent, like, is there part of it's a trust thing,
Yep.
right? Number one. Number two, we do a lot of the marketing for them. So we have the campaigns created. The drip campaigns do, a lot of the automated stuff.
Yeah.
But we do, I know I was listening to you before I came out and you were talking about having an ISA team, right?
Yeah.
An inside sales agent team or hiring folks to do the cultivating.
For you, yeah.
And we do have a team of almost 20 inside sales agents, and they do that cultivating.
Yep.
And, number one, and when Jeff asked me this question originally, he's like, well, like, what if it's my neighbor? My neighbor wants to work with me. And we truly believe in how we've kind of created our team and the culture of our team. The agents that are part of TLG, one of the things I think they're most attracted to, and one of our core values, is teamwork and being truly a master of whatever your space is. If I'm a buyer agent, truly being a master at working with buyers and seeing hundreds of homes, inside of any given month, and they really know the market because they're out looking at all these properties.
Yep.
My neighbor, I said to him, my dad, like, here's a perfect example. My dad would absolutely rather have a member of our team helping him with all of his transactional paperwork than me any day of the week, or we're
Sure.
both going to be in trouble somewhere,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But, if somebody's joining your organization and they don't believe that your business is the best business to serve their best friends, their family, right? Then that's the very first conversation that we're going to have, because we truly want to take care of any of the people in their sphere like we would our own family.
So they actually, the reverse of that, they want to give you that information so that way you can help them cultivate more business from it.
Absolutely. And it's optional for them, right? It's not a mandate. We actually used to mandate it. Use that word loosely,
Sure.
right? Like, if you're going to be part of the team, we want to help you grow in that space. There's another little added value for them too, and that's that we pay a little differently for Sphere. We pay a little extra if our inside sales team isn't doing the cultivating.
Yep.
Then they're going to make a little extra, a bonus on their Sphere deals as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
And we give them that option too.
Yep.
If they want to do the cultivating, great. If they want to focus on whatever their one thing is,
Love it.
it's fine.
No, that's great. So let's shift gears for a second. If I were to ask you, because this whole 3-day summit is building a massive database, adding value to it, and getting a return from it. So if I were to ask you, how do you add value to your database? When you think of everything TLG did in 2019, what would you say, if you want to list them all, or your top 2 or 3 things that you guys did in 2019 to add value to your database?
Sure. We make, actually, with certain periods of time throughout the year, like, we have a homestead exemption tax in the state of Texas. And so at the beginning of the year, Q1, when we make our calls to our MET group, to our Forever clients, or to our Sphere calls, we'll call and just remind them, hey, if you haven't done this, because some people forgot it last year and so they want to get in this year, or we'll call with anything that's seasonal like that.
Yep.
We also really work to build relationships with those folks and help be connectors for them for any services. And thinking about any particular group of individuals and what they might need in their life. You were mentioning like investors and builders, and right? So by tagging the different folks by category in our data bank, then we can be a lot more intentional about calling with value to that specific group. Maybe, we have a hot property that one of our folks needs to sell in a distressed situation, right? Well, shoot, that's a win-win. If we can call our investor group and go, hey, we just, this is coming, who wants it, right? That's great for both people. So.
Under the same category of adding value, do you guys do client events? Do you do client gifts? What do you do throughout the year to stay in touch with your database?
Yeah, we do 2 big events every year. We do a pie, Thanksgiving pie, and
how many pies do you give away?
$11,000 worth this year.
$11,000 worth of pies.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the
it was
return
actually,
on that has been
it was
tenfold.
about 900 pies this year.
Okay, so I actually have a question about that. So you have 50,000 in your database. How did you identify the 900 that got the pies?
Sure. Actually, I'm really glad you asked that, because one thing I think in that tagging thing to think about is what you're going to also offer in your marketing to these folks. So this year we actually just scrubbed our data bank for that very reason. So we only have our PI event for our Sphere, our MET database, right, or our Circle of Influence, and our Forever clients, okay?
Yep.
Then we do a second event in the spring at the zoo, and now it's gotten so big that we can take down the zoo, and we reserved the whole Houston Zoo, which is a whole lot of fun, and it definitely fixed a lot of parking issues. And so we had the whole zoo reserved on a Friday night, and we had about 1,250 RSVPs for that this past year.
Yep.
And they do like a little hamburger and hot dog catering. That we only send out to our what we calls our forever, I keep using that term,
Yeah,
our forever
clients.
client.
Yep.
That would be what probably most people call your past client.
Yep.
That's a big thing for us, because like, how many of you want to work with a client? Well, goes for most clients, and not work with them again and just think about them in the past. Versus how many of you want to work with a client and think of them as now your client for forever, and then think of you as their agent for forever. And just by changing that one little word for us has really been a dynamic mindset shift. Words matter.
So forever clients plus Sphere get invited to this, or just forever clients?
Just forever clients.
So what do you do for the Sphere of Influence?
Actually, you know what? Even the members of our team, if they're not working the event, if they haven't been a forever client, we don't invite them either. Isn't that terrible? Like, yeah. So we have, I know, isn't that fun? It's, it's not. Here's the thing, guys. When you're creating an event that's truly like exclusive and super special, that's something that we want to be able to network with those folks, right? And we have a lot of members of our team come and work it. And we'd not ever keep anybody out, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we also, they get an invite too. They are a forever client, right? Think about that. So the people in your organization as well.
So talking about Sphere of Influence.
Yeah.
Family, friends of yours that aren't clients or haven't done any business with you, what category do they fall in?
Clients.
Let's just
Ask
say
me differently.
neighbor. If you have a neighbor that lives across the street, never bought or sold a house with you, but they're probably, because you have a good relationship with them, would consider using you. Do you put them in a category, or do they get anything from you?
So we have this year, because we've kind of been resorting and cleaning up our data bank. Yes, so we would call that our circle of influence.
Circle of influence.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
We used to divide our data bank very simply into met and haven't met, right?
Yep.
And then there becomes a whole lot of question around what's a met.
Yeah, we talked about that. We changed the term, by the way, here today to exchange database, meaning you've had some type of.
Yep. Do you want to talk over here?
No, they'll bring
That's
up
a little.
There we go.
He's back on.
Just making sure you guys are awake. We call that the exchange database.
Yeah.
Meaning we've had some type of exchange that's been positive. And if we've had enough exchanges that are positive, even if we haven't physically met them, they go into the exchange database, which we're treating as if it were a current or a past or forever client.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So somebody that is in your circle of influence then, would you treat them just like a forever client? Do they get the same value?
We market to them differently, for sure.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, and so you asked about gifts. We don't do gifts. We would rather offer some way for us to continue building that relationship, right? So that's why we went that route, and we still, are looking at our budget and our ROI the same way. So how much are we going to spend, on each forever client now from that as whatever our residual is going to be, but it's also part of our ongoing touch campaign as well, so the two kind of fold together. We have an automatic 12-month count, like a newsletter that goes out to everybody. We do quarterly calls to everyone that's in that circle of influence. So if you think like old school Venn diagram, here's your huge circle of influence, right? The people who know you, you know them, you've met them, your exchanges, right? I like that term. And then you have the folks who are your sphere, your friends and family, but maybe they haven't done business with you yet, and then we have an even smaller group of advocates. And those are the folks that are out truly like talking about TLG. And
what do you do with that group? Do you treat that group differently? We've heard people, Jenny Wolick from Tulsa was up on stage,
awesome.
Jenny.
I do.
Talking about, she has a group, she calls them her rock stars.
Yeah.
And they're like her top 100. And I know a lot of agents have their top 50 or 20 or whatever. What do you do differently to that group?
What are we supposed to do differently? That's the real question.
Yep.
We're really actually right now going through a whole lot of cleanup. In fact, out of our data bank grew to 79,000, 79.
Yep.
Right? And we scrubbed 8,000 out of it this past like 6 months. We've really been doing a lot of cleanup. So on anybody that we found we didn't have good information on, or duplicates, like our system we found wasn't all scrubbing duplicates. Anybody that was a husband, wife, we combined, that kind of thing. So we did a whole lot of cleanup, and in doing that, we actually really got more clear about who our advocate group was and started tagging that a little bit differently, because intentionally we want to talk to those people more often.
Yes.
We want to make sure if they're really advocating for us, we're advocating for them back. Right? And that we're helping them make the connections. And you were talking about networking a little while ago, right? How can we help them make some of those networking connections too? So yes, and in total transparency, we're headed that way.
Yeah, you need to.
Right? That's a goal for us.
Good. One of the things you mentioned is you have your ISA teams work the database. I remember when my coach first advised me to start working a database, and after he fought me over and over and over again, and I still didn't take his advice. He said, okay, fine, Jeff, you have ISAs working for sale by owners and expireds. Pick your most loving ISA and have them be the database caller. Oh, I could never have somebody else call my sphere of influence or my database. That would be rude. They would be offended. And I'll never forget his question to me, but isn't it better than them not getting a call at all? Okay, well, I guess when you put it that way. So you actually have your ISA team working the database on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And what does that look like?
So quarterly calls,
okay,
right? And we still send notes after quarterly calls. Our marketing team is fantastic, so they've made it a little bit easier. And sometimes if it's seasonal, they'll make like in bulk something that we're gonna send out. But we still write little notes inside after we've talked to people. So just fairly religiously staying in touch with those folks is key for us.
And what is the reason for the call? A lot of agents are apprehensive to make a call to their database. Well, I don't have a reason to call them, or what reason should I use other than just, hey, will you refer me someone? What are the reasons for the calls?
Sure. We cycle through quite a few different reasons. So sometimes, honestly, it's, hey, we haven't talked for a while. I'm calling to check in on you. And that a little bit softer touch, right? We might embed one of those throughout the year. Like I was saying, like our homestead tax or anything that's seasonal, anything after Hurricane Harvey. We had that little Harvey hurricane thing a couple years ago.
We played the video at the retreat, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he was a doozy. But, that gave us such an opportunity to call and really just check on our people. Like, we were not calling to do any business at that point. We wanted to make sure everybody was okay. And the business that came out of that, you guys, was unbelievable because people felt cared about. So anything that you can make a call where you're showing that value in caring about these people. We talk so much about building relationships in real estate, right? And I think that word can be taken out of context. Lance, if anybody that's heard Lance the last couple of years, he's not the biggest relationship guy, in case you didn't pick up on that. He and I are a little different that way, right? And we've gotten really clear that a relationship is not a friendship, right? A relationship is how can I be here to really add value to you, help you grow, help you achieve your goals, right? And I care truly about you. That's the relationship, right? It's not that we're gonna be besties forever.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Karina Loken. Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job.